Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Avoiding all the cops on the way here as you're trying to fast. And it's a blessing to be in the community of one of the premier imams and leaders and scholars of American Islam. And that's Imam Al-Alama Majid. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect him and preserve him, to raise his status, to bless his family who really are the silent supporters and constant foundations for great people. So you're extremely lucky to have him as a leader and imam, and I hope inshallah that you can appreciate the fact that you have him amongst you. If you go to Dar Hijra now, the constant kind of statement you hear from people is, I wish I asked Sheikh Hanuti this. I wish I didn't treat him this way. I wish I hadn't, abused him or disrespected him or said something bad about him. So you still have an opportunity with a great scholar, and I want to encourage us all, myself included, to take advantage of his presence. Alhamdulillah, we have arrived at Surah Al Kahf. Surah Al Kahf is an extremely important chapter. And when we're talking about the Quran, we need first to introduce ourselves to the Quran itself. The word Quran, it's from qara'a. Everyone knows that. But oftentimes people fail to catch something really crucial here. When you ask most people, what is qara'a, yaqra'u, Quran and qira'atan, what does the word Quran mean? They will say it means what? To recite. Then I'll ask my Arab brothers and sisters here, what's the name of a village in Arabic? Al-Masbul Al-Aryani, right? Al-Qarya, from the same word, Qara'a, Qarya, but the ya, it's a long story why the ya is there. And a woman's menstrual cycle, what do we call it? In the Quran, Thalathata Quru, from the same word, Quru, Qara'a. So the word for village has the same root as Quran, and the word for menstruation has the same root as Quran. So then maybe it means something more than just to recite. Maybe there's a deeper meaning. So that's why Imam al-Fayrazubadi was a great scholar of the language. He said the word Quran means jam' al-shay. Qara'a and yajma'. Yaqra'u yajma'. It means to bring things together. Because when people gather together to live in an urban lifestyle, like say the village of Adams Morgan, right? That's because they were brought together. It's called qarya. When a woman, the Arabs theorized, long time ago, when she would have her menstrual cycle, her blood gathered together in her uterus. This was their theory. So they called it quru. The Quran is called Quran because the Quran yajma' al-kalimat wal-ahruf wal-ibarat. The Quran is called Quran because it brings together words, sentences, and thoughts. So one of our teachers used to say to us, if the Quran is what gathers together words and thoughts and ideas, which we believe, alhamdulillah, are sacred, then the person who reads the Quran should see their life slowly gathered together around the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and good character. Everybody understand what I just said? Yeah. So Al-Quran, Qara'a, Jama'a. That's one of the meanings. So when we read the Quran, that really should be our approach. That life is hectic. Life is in a constant flux. So I go to the Quran to help me gather myself. And I go to the Quran to help me gather my purpose and to focus on my life. So when, my boss is going crazy or my deadlines are out of pocket, my children have lost their minds, my wife and I may be having some issues, whatever. In those hectic moments, when life becomes a tempest, we go to the Quran to help us gather ourselves and focus. Another thing when we talk about the Quran is Tafseer. Tafseer. The word Tafseer in English is usually explained, it's translated as like an explanation of the Quran. But Tafseer actually means something very different. Explanation is Sharh. Ashrahu laka hadha kitaba I'm going to explain for you a book. It's called Sharh. But tafsir is deeper. Tafsir means to explain things that most people don't pay attention to. That's why one of the scholars said, Tafsir ay yudrak al-haqa'iq al-Qur'aniyya. That tafsir means someone is able to extract the subtleties of the Qur'an, the realities of the Qur'an that most people miss. Let me give an example. Surah Al Kahf. All of us will read Surah Al Kahf. I'll give you 2 examples of this, inshallah. Surah Al Kahf is a very interesting chapter. If you look at it in detail, there's one theme of the whole chapter. This is the battle between materialism and spirituality. That's the theme of the surah. So you look at the very beginning, when someone has the opportunity to choose between being comfortable in this world and receiving benefit in this world and living a good life, or living in a cave for Allah, they choose a cave. So the battle of the material and leaving the material for Allah. فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَافِ يَرْجُ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَيُهَيِّئْ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, go to the cave. فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَافِ. So that's the first. The second we see in the story, the man in the garden. Again, those 2 men. وَلَوْلَا إِذْ دَخَلْتَ جَنَّتَكَ قُلْتَ مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Because maybe somebody reads Surah Al Kahf. I remember this happened to me once. I was in Oklahoma a long time ago when I first converted, and there was this white convert brother. He came from nowhere, and he showed up at the mosque. He was doing 40 days with Jama'at Tabligh Hafizahullah. And he came to me and he asked me, "Ashtab al-Kahf?" He asked me, "Did you ever live in a cave?" I was like, "No, I live in a cave, bro." He was like, "No, but so the Kahf, we're encouraged to leave this world, leave these skyscrapers, leave these football stadiums, leave the bus stops, leave everything, leave the flip phones." It was in the 90s, right? And live in a cave. So maybe someone, when they read the beginning of Surah Al Kahf, they'll be confused and they'll think, oh, this is the meaning of zuhd. The meaning of zuhd is to flee everything and to live, a life of being very frugal. But then Allah gives the example, no, there's a balance of a person who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him wealth, gave him great success, and if he would have remembered Allah and attributed his success to Allah, it would have all been gravy. It would all, all been successful. So Allah says, وَلَوْلَا إِذْ دَخَلْتَ جَنَّتَكَ قُلْتَ مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. So here we have 2 people, and they're battling between possessions and material wealth. One has been given abundance, one hasn't. If the one that had been given abundance had been thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he didn't have to live in a cave to be pious, it would have been acceptable. And that's why right after that the story says, وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ إِذَا نَسِيتَ وَلَوْلَا إِذْ وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. And that's why that comes after that story. Whatever you do, whatever you accomplish, O Muhammad, whether it's spiritual or material, you do not accomplish it إِلَّا بِمَشِيَةِ اللَّهِ, except with the will of Allah. So everything you do, say Insha'Allah. لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And then we see the third component of the chapter. In order to maintain a proper understanding of piety, we have to have knowledge. هَلْ تُعَلِّمَنِ مِمَّا عُلِّمْتَ رُشْدًا. So we see Sayyidina Musa, even though he's the greatest prophet of his age, the most successful person in his lifetime, he understands the importance of professional development. Everyone here knows what that word means. So when he finds that someone knows more than him, he goes to him to increase his knowledge. Because without knowledge, the understanding of how to balance the material and the spiritual will be lost. Without knowledge, someone will either become hyper-conservative, irrational conservatism, or irresponsible liberalism. And in the middle is knowledge. And then at the end, we learn that piety is not an excuse to ignore social justice issues. Piety is not an excuse to be engaged in society. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. So we see someone now who, even though he's extremely pious, and he is someone who may in fact, be considered a massive leader, but he doesn't allow his piety, his tasawwuf is the fashionable word. Tasawwuf is not used as an alibi to be politically apathetic. The opposite. his tazkiyah and his closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually encourages him to go to the farthest of the west and the farthest of the east to make sure that people are treated properly. And this is the great contradiction of many of the mashaykh in Egypt after the Egyptian revolution, who in the name of piety gave fatwas that people could be slaughtered in the streets. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. So that's one way to look at the surah before it gets too hot. The second way to look at the surah is very interesting. There's two other ways I'll show you tafsir. One is how you build your personality. So the first is you have to pull away from evil. فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ. After you pull away from evil, then you have things in your life you have to be shakir to Allah. وَلَوْلَا إِذْ دَخَلْتَ جَنَّتَكَ قُلْتَ مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. The third thing that you have to do after pulling away and understanding the values of what you have in this life is to learn Sayyidina Musa. And the fourth thing is to be active. And that's why we actually say that those four aspects of Surah Al Kahf are mirrored in Wal Asri Innal Insana La Fi Khusr Illa Alladhina Amanu Wa Amilu Salihati Wa Tawasaw Bil Haqqi Wa Tawasaw Bis Sabr. Surah Al Kahf is a map of Surah Al Asr. It's very powerful. Another way to look at the surah is this way. You're weak, you were weak, and in order to become strong, you need to learn. So you start with a surah, you have these young men, they're weak, they don't have political power. They don't have the ability to defend themselves, so they have to flee. فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَيُهَيِّئْ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ. But then after that is knowledge. And that's why Allah says about Sayyidina Musa in other parts of the Quran, وَآتَيْنَا Musa Sultan. Most ulama said Sultan is knowledge. We gave Musa authority. Most of the scholars said it means knowledge. Because by knowledge, you become strong. You understand how to function, understand how to engage. The Arabs say, عَدَمُ مَعْرِفَةَ يُفِيدُ شِدَّةً. The Arabs say, when you don't know something, it makes you make things difficult. And then if you have the spiritual peace where you're able to pull back and you acquire knowledge, then you arise to leadership. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. Some people said if you look at Surah Al Kahf through all 3 or 4 stories, you see actually the pillars of Islam. So the first, those young boys who pull away from evil, this is Islam, to establish the halal and haram. The second you see Sayyidina Musa is ihsan, to learn and study, to engage in knowledge and humility and tazkiyat an-nafs. And the last you have is Dhil Qarnayn, is Iman, Islah Bayn al-Nas. Because one of the signs of Iman is that you are someone who brings benefit to the people. These things that I'm explaining to you now, this is tafsir. How do you link chapters together? How do you see relationships between these verses and these verses? Now that takes us to the story. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He begins this verse very interesting. He begins with subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is the 83rd verse. يَسْأَلُونَكَ. يَسْأَلُونَكَ. What does يَسْأَلُونَكَ mean? They're asking you now. Even though sa'alu, I'm sure whoever came before me explained to you the 3 questions that people asked the Prophet, correct? Yes or no? No?
Yes.
Yes or no? Wow. No problem. People are tired like me. I haven't slept in about 7.5 months. So a group of Jewish people came to the Prophet ﷺ. They asked him 3 questions. They asked him about the ruh, the spirit. They asked him about Ashab Al Kahf, these young people in the cave, and they asked him about Dhil Qarnayn. The Prophet ﷺ said, Inshallah bukum sawjibukum. The Prophet said, tomorrow I'll answer you. Well, the answer didn't come. Then after around 2 weeks, Ibn Ishaq, he said 14 days. Sayyidina Jibreel, he came to the Prophet, he said, وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلُ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا. That's why you say inshallah. Some of our ulama said the barakah of Muhammad is such that even in his inability to do the lesser good, the whole ummah learns from it. Yani even it's not a mistake, right? But he said he was excited. Tomorrow I'm going to tell you, right? Because he has confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But even in that, right? That little glitch, Look how we learned, all of us now, we never do anything except we say what? Inshallah. One of the first things our children learn is inshallah, that nothing happens illa bi'idhnillah. So they asked the Prophet and he said, I'm gonna tell you guys tomorrow, I got this. And then after 2 weeks it came, and the first answer came in Surah Al-Isra. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Right? And then the other two answers are found in what surah? Surah Al Kahf. Yas'alunak is very interesting. Why? Because that would imply that the Prophet ﷺ, his community is extremely open. It's inviting. Because most of the ulama of history, they said the ones asking him were the Jews. So imagine how comfortable the Prophet's community must have been, even in Mecca, under all those difficulties, right? Sometimes in America after 9/11, as a white convert, I witnessed this, man. The white guy shows up to the mosque and people start getting nervous. Who's the white dude? Right? And one of my friends, Mustafa, we went to middle school together. He left Islam. And one of the reasons he left Islam is he went to a community where he was asked at least 6 times, do you work for the FBI? Wallahi. I sent him to a mosque to go and take shahada. He went into the mosque and immediately someone awqafu wa sa'alu tashtaghal ma'a Fred Barney and Isaac ya ragab. He said to him, do you work for the FBI? He said, I just want to become Muslim. I don't know about this stuff. So under pressure, we sometimes use pressure as an excuse to behave differently. All of us do, with our wives, with our kids, whatever. It happens. I'm having a bad day. Right? Real Madrid lost. Right? Something, whatever. My team is the Redskins. You'd be mad every day. But the point is this. Hey, it's Tom Brady to win it tonight. The point is this, that hard times cannot be used as an excuse to lose ethics. Look at the Prophet's community in Mecca. It's so comfortable and inviting that Jews can come right to the Prophet and talk to him. Yas'alunak, they ask you. Also we find the Muslims in the Quran 13 times, Yas'alunaka, 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 Yas'alunak. And this is one of the mistakes now we find in the contemporary age, that the weirder a sheikh is, or the more difficult he is to approach, that must mean he's right. And I have to somehow prove myself by being as weird. Whereas the Prophet ﷺ, anybody can ask him a question. Anybody can come to him. Anybody can talk to him. Yesterday we did a qiyam with around 200 young people. And every time they'd raise their hand and ask me a question, they would say, I'm sorry. I said, why are you sorry? You sound like an Akon song. Like, why are you sorry? And they're like, well, I know we're not supposed to ask questions. If you don't ask questions, how are you going to learn? The Prophet ﷺ said to Sayyidina Abi Dharr radiyallahu anhu, he said the remedy for any illness is to ask a question. Maybe some people will say, but what about the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, كَثْرَةُ السُّؤَالِ, as he mentioned that إِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, what destroyed those who came before you, was that they asked their prophets a lot of questions. But Al-Hafiz Ibn Rajab, he said a lot of questions here means they ask questions that are not in a sincere vein. They ask questions to create trouble purposely, not to learn, not istifham, istikhbar. There's a difference between istifham, I want to learn, I'm asking a question, I'm seeking knowledge, and istikhbar, I want to show how strong I am and how great I am. So يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ, here we go. The moment everybody wants to know, was it Alexander? No, Dhul Qarnayn was not Brad Pitt, alright? Just get it out of your head, right? And the reason for that is that early scholars, when they begin to read about this person, they did not have the means that science has now to go and research and understand. So when they look through history, they found this great king, the greatest king they could find, who they felt somewhat looked like Dhul Qarnayn, was Alexander the Great. And this started with the Imam al-Tabari. He's the one who wrote this, as well as the Tabarani. And after them, people became muqallideen. People just followed them. It was Iskandar, it was Iskandar, it was Iskandar, it was Iskandar. Until you get to the later scholars who begin to actually understand who Alexander the Great was, because Allah describes Dhul Qarnayn as a mu'min, not a mushrik. Secondly, Dhul Qarnayn is described as someone who is just. And all historical reports we have about Alexander the Great were that he wasn't the most just guy on the planet. So that's why now when you read, it's very funny. When I came today, a brother came to me after I made salam, he said, I'm asking one question. So here it comes. He said, I'm not making fun of the brother, it was awesome. He's like, you're going to talk about Alexander the Great? Yes. So the majority of our scholars are like, no. What the scholars do agree upon is that they don't really know who he is. They offer different opinions. Some said he was a king in Yemen. And they mentioned some things that they discovered in Yemen. Others mentioned that it was Genghis Khan. And this is strengthened, not him, but his tribe, that taught on the Mongols, because of the statement of the Prophet ﷺ to Salama that a fitna is coming to the Arabs. And it will come from the direction of the east. And in that hadith, he mentions, we're going to talk about them, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So Imam Ibn Ashur al-Tunisi, one of the great scholars of the last era, he said based on this, I believe it was the Tartars and the Mongolians. Wallahu a'lam. But here's the important point. We have an axiom in Tafseer. What's the purpose of Tafseer? I have a question for you. You know, when I finished my degree in education many years ago, and I was going to start teaching, I had a great professor who sat me down and said, I'm going to ask you the most difficult question you've ever been asked before. And I was like, what? He said, why do you teach? What's the purpose of teaching? So sometimes questions force us to think about things. I encourage people actually to write down answers. You can't do it now because writing is really another level of thinking. But what's the purpose of tafsir? I don't know. I'm asking. Istifham. This is not a question to create trouble. This is a question to learn. What's the purpose of tafsir? What do you think? MashaAllah, to understand. So that would imply to learn, to deal with maybe doubtful issues, confused issues, to solve those problems. That's one purpose of tafsir. But why? Why do we understand? Why do we learn? Why is it that we acquire knowledge? For what purpose?
To apply.
Good. Let me ask you a question. In the month of Ramadan, what would happen between the Prophet and Jibreel?
They will recite the Quran. They will recite the Quran.
Right. Jibreel would come to Muhammad ﷺ and read the Quran with him. What was the outcome of that? What does the hadith say to Ibn Abbas, the Sahih al-Bukhari? What does he say about that? He said that when the month of Ramadan came, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من أجود الناس. Said the Prophet was the most generous person, but when the month of Ramadan came and he would sit with Jibreel, he became what? More generous. So one of our teachers, Sheikh, subhanAllah, Sheikh Salah Sultan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free him. We read, Sahih al-Bukhari with him, and his son now from free. And he used to say to us, this hadith is proof that the more Quran you read, the better person you should become. The more the Quran is read to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more generous he becomes. So the Shaykh used to say, the more you learn, you should find yourself less in the masjid. I said, how? He said, yeah, because the Quran is teaching you to be involved with society, to serve people, to care about people, to be generous. So we study tafsir for one simple reason, outside of understanding, answering questions, and that is to be better servants to Allah and better servants to people. That's it. It's not complicated. The Prophet said, أَقْرَبُكُمْ إِلَيَّ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَحْسَنُكُمْ خُلُقًا. The closest of you to me will be those who have the best character. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So here's an important principle based on that idea. that anything in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not go into great detail about, you should not spend too much time on it. And anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took time to discuss and inform us about, we should pay attention to it. And I'll give you an example of how we inverted this. Whenever I do Tafseer of Surah Al Kahf, after the beginning of the first, say, 30, 40 verses, people always have the same question. What do you think that question is? They have always the same two questions. First, where is the what?
Yep.
Who cares? If you know where the cave is it going to help you pray at night? If you know where the cave is, are you going to stop abusing people? If I know where the cave is that somehow going to create some kind of incremental, massive epiphany that changes me for, oh my, I found out where the cave is? Nirvana. That's the first question. Now, if we want to go for history, understand, yeah, for my children, I want my children to go see the history of the prophets. That's a value prop I can buy into, right? The second thing they ask is what? How many know? That's a good question, actually. Think about it. The what? What kind of dog was it? Was it like a collie, like Lassie? No, it was a pit bull, dude. It was a rock that had been trained to kill people, right? Again, so if you know what kind of dog it is, it's not going to help you in life. Just know what kind of dog they have, right? Not to diminish anyone's concerns, but just to put it in perspective that we should ask about things that deal with doubts. We should ask about things that increase our faith. We should ask about things that sincerely bother us, if they do. And then fourthly, we should ask about things that lead us to practice. That's why Imam Ash-Shatibi, in his book Al-Muwafaqat, he said, the Sharia does not condone anything that leads to that lack of practice. The Sharia encourages practice. It's not like the guy from former 76ers player. Sharia is concerned with practice. It worries about it. So people will come to the Prophet ﷺ and ask him, Mata sa'a ya Rasulullah? When is the hour? When is the day of judgment? The Prophet said, Ma a'datta laha? What did you prepare for? His answer, he doesn't make fun of him or say this is a ridiculous question. His answer encourages practice. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا قُلْ فِيهِمَا. Then Allah responds, but he doesn't answer them directly. He leads to something. He answers them in a way that leads to actions. That's why when the Prophet ﷺ was asked by Sayyidina Jibreel, what are the signs of the hours? I don't know. Because I don't want to say something. It doesn't lead to practice. In the end of the Quran, in Surah Al Tahrim, we see how this is taught to us. Look, at the end of Surah Al Tahrim, Allah mentions a number of women. Who are they? The wife of Noah and the wife of Lot. The wife of Nuh and the wife of Lot. Does it give us a lot of information about them? But then it talks about the wife of Fir'aun. It gives a little bit more information, but it doesn't give her name, doesn't give her lineage. And then the last woman it talks about is who? وَمَرْيَمَ بَنَتِ عِمْرَانَ الَّتِي أَحْصَنَتْ فَرْجَهَا وَنَفَخْنَا فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِنَا وَصَدَّقَتْ بِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّهَا وَكِتَابِهِ وَالْقِرَاءَةِ وَكُتُبِهِ وَكَانَتْ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Allah mentions her, qanitin. Allah mentions her and goes into great detail in comparison to the other women, as if to say, focus on this one. So now in this chapter, the end of the chapter, we have to be very careful that what we focus on are not the lineage of Dhul Qarnayn, what was his passport, did he fly Delta or United? Doesn't matter. There are other lessons we should take from. And the main lesson that we take from Dhul Qarnayn that all of us here can apply is how to deal with professional success. That's something, as soon as I said it, everybody, I just got that 5 seconds, man. Yeah, you. How do we deal with success? Because this is a successful person. So Allah says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. Dhul Qarnayn, actually the scholars differ about what his name means. Dhi means the one who has, Qarnayn, 2 horns. Some ulama said Dhul Qarnayn is because he had like braided hair. So he had braids, he had two big braids, right? So they said he was called Dhul Qarnayn, the one who has two braids. Other ulama, they said no, because these two horns, qarn actually means horn, right? But here it's used as a metaphor, are metaphors for the east and the west. That he would conquer between these areas. But what's interesting is that Qarnayn was known to the Arabs. The word was known to the Arabs. So instead of giving them his name and going into detail about him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses something which the Arabs knew culturally. And that's why we take a proof from this verse for al-urf, that culture is used at times in da'wah to reach people. So Allah says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. They ask you about Dhul Qarnayn, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He responds, قُلْ, say, O Muhammad, سَأَتْلُوا عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْهُ ذِكْرًا. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, now I will inform you of some information about him, but it's hard to translate this verse. If you think about it in Arabic, you might say, سَأَتْلُوا عَلَيْكُمْ, رَوَابِعْ مِنْ حَيَاتِهِ, or al-waqa'at min hayatihi. It says, minhu dhikra. Saying, O Muhammad, I will recite to you from some of his story, from some of his life. Dhikra, remembrance. I said, if you were going to translate it, remembrance. It doesn't say, I'm going to mention to you some of the things that happened in his life. I'm going to talk about this or that. Because when you say that, it implies that it's doubtful. But when you say dhikra, it means that the one who's mentioning this to you has been taught by the one who knows every single thing that happened in this person as though this dhikra is happening now. And you lose this in English. I'm sorry if I'm not rendering it well in English, but instead of saying, we're just going to tell you a few things that happened in his life, no, we're going to tell you the dhikra, because this is the truth. Because it's coming from alamu al-ghuyub subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna makkanna lahu fil ard. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed we makkanna umakkin shay. If I were to set something up on a table and make sure that it didn't fall, umakkin. Right? I'm stabilizing it. I'm making it strong. So here's something powerful, very beautiful. Inna makkanna lahu fil ard means that we gave him everything he needed to be successful. So don't get it twisted. And here's the first lesson for us as young professionals and young successful people and those who have lived long lives and Allah has blessed them, mashallah, is every single thing you have is from Allah. That's why it says, Inna makkanna lahu. Everything from the smallest to the greatest success that he has ever had and will ever have is from us. That's why some of the ulama said the first sign of spiritual descent is to fail to value the small blessings, not the big ones. And one of our teachers used to say that those small blessings are like pebbles that make a mountain wing. If you keep ignoring them, then you lost a mountain of blessings. You have to pay attention to the small things. Think about where we were. I remember when I was in college, right? And our breakfast was like an aloo paratha and achar. That was my breakfast in college. It was this Pakistani bread called aloo paratha. It's highly addictive, and a hot pepper. That was like our breakfast for 4 years. We didn't have like lattes and soy vanilla lattes and oolong tea that's been imported from the mountains of China. We were just like, we would even take the burned part of it and eat that. Because that's that time of your life where you struggle and you grind, and as a convert, right, you suffer economic dissidence from even your family members, so you have to struggle. And then you look at your life now, how Allah has given us things that we would have never imagined we have. Those of you who suddenly, like, you meet these brothers and sisters in their late 20s and they're just like amazed at the success that they're having because 3 or 4 years ago they thought it was all over with. I'm not going to get into this school. I haven't graduated from here. I didn't get into an Ivy. This. And now you're rolling. Makkanaka Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you in this place. And not only that, our success in worship. That if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not guided our hearts and chosen us, we would be straying. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not favored us to touch our hearts to see properly, we'll be lost. So when he says, Inna makkanna, that means everything, whether spiritually or material, that were a means of him achieving success from Allah. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. So the first lesson we take as we try to become successful and as we move through life, and Washington, D.C. is a very corrosive city. It's very different. When I lived in Boston, the question was, where do you study? When I was in Oklahoma, it was just like, no question. In the Bay Area, it's like, what kind of art do you do? Right? Boston, where do you go to school? But in Washington, D.C., what is that question everybody asks? Who do you work for? Where do you work? Are you Z or A? Are you 15th or 2? Because that tells me what kind of job you have, what kind of situation you're in, which is great, but don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. At the end of the day, we have to remind ourselves all of our success spiritually and financially and materially, our children, our husbands, our wives. And if we don't see success, what we have is by the plan of the one, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ لَطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. The scholars said for anyone to really be successful, they should focus on two things. They should focus on two things. And that's why in Surah Al-Baqarah it says, زَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ وَاللَّهُ يُؤْتِي مُلْكَهُ مَن يَشَاءُ. Allah, when he talks about Talut, this king in the time of David, we call him Saul in the old days, before we found what's supposed to be what's right. Allah says we increased him in knowledge and physical strength. So the ulama, they said, first is to have knowledge, to learn, to study, to engage in the world around you, and then physical strength, not only to be ripped or whatever in CrossFitting, but it also means to make sure the environment around you is conducive for success. That's why Sheikh Muhammad al-Hassan used to say, true success comes through two means. Taking account of your internal abilities and taking account of your external abilities, setting forth goals for yourself, and if you realize that you have any shortcomings in reaching those goals, you make up for them. So Allah says, إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. We gave him everything he had in the earth. And here, earth doesn't mean the whole world. Many people, when they read this, they think, oh, and that's maybe why the idea of Alexander came, that he was ruling the entire earth. Al-Ard means here the specific area where he lived. فَهُوَ كَلِمَةٌ عَامَّةٌ تُرَادُ بِهِ خَاصٌ. It's a general word whose intention is what is specific. Like at the end of Surah Al Imran, الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسِ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ. Those who will say to them, humanity is coming to get you, O Muhammad. Was all humanity coming to get Prophet Muhammad? Or just a group of people? A group of people, but they call them an-nas, humanity. Here the same thing. Fil ardi means fi makanihi, fi qaryatihi, fi madinatihi, the area where he lived and he ruled. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. Oh, we have to pay attention. I know everybody's tired. I know you're tired. And we'll make it quick. We won't do everything because, people have to get some rest and not think about food. Allah says, وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. Sometimes in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the means of something and he means its outcome. Or he mentions the outcomes of a means and he intends its means. Let me explain it to you. For example, Allah says, وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ رِزْقًا. We sent provisions from the heavens. What are provisions? Rain, but it doesn't say rain. It says, وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ مَاءً أَوْ مَطَرًا. It says رِزْقًا. Rizqa here means your kids, your TV, your garden, your grass. So instead of saying the rain, he mentions the outcome of the rain is what? The food you eat. So you'll stop and think about it. So here I says, وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. We gave him the means to everything. What do you think means here means? Asbab, sabab. Here, most of the scholars said, al-turuq. We gave him the ability to build roads. And that ability to build roads allowed him to reach his goal. Sabab. So that's why some ulama, they said this verse is a proof that things like engineering and science are art from the fard kifaya, because they're all asbab to wasa'il. So we gave him min kulli shay'in sababa. We gave him the means to do whatever he wanted. In his age, that means was the ability to reach places. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَتْبَعَ السَّبَبَ. And he took those means and he utilized them for the sake of Allah. This is the second and third quality of professionals and successful people. Number one is to achieve we mentioned earlier, is that a person has to realize everything is from Allah. Number two is they learn and they seek asbab, akhdhu bil asbab. Some people, they think that the more religious they are, the less work they have to do. You know what I'm talking about? Every community has some of those kind of people. There should be no loitering signs, because it's a problem. Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, one time he came to the mosque in his era, and he found these two guys. They were making dhikr and making dua, and he came back like 8 hours later, and they were still making dhikr and dua. And he said to them, "Hey!" And if Umar says, "Hey," it's time to dip. It's time to go. He said, "Let me ask you, Assalamu alaikum." He said, "What do you guys do?" نُسَبِّحُ اللَّهَ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى وَنُقَدِّسُهُ. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we love Him, and we dedicated ourselves to Allah. We just sit here, mashallah. We emptied our hearts to Him. He said, "Wait 1 minute." He came back with a stick and he hit them. And he said, "Go work." Maybe somebody said, "But what about Ahlul Sufa in Medina?" There's a difference. Their poverty wasn't by choice. Their poverty was by providence. Maybe somebody will say, "What about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?" All of the difficulties that the companions of the Prophet experienced were not self-initiated. They were part of the divine plan. That's very different. So maybe somebody thinks like, I'm righteous, I'm good. I remember one time a brother, it wasn't in this area, I don't have an office here, so alhamdulillah. And he came to me and his wife was with him, and she said, "I don't understand him." I said, "What happened?" She said, "He quit his job and he just stays home." So I said, "Wow, either you're loaded, you won the lotto on accident because you weren't playing it on purpose. You got a fat sevens package, but you're like 26. You sold something to Google, right? Some kind of startup. Now you know where it was, stuff like that. And it was the Bay Area, fine. And this and that. So I said to him, "Why?" He said, I was praying a few weeks ago, and I had this feeling that I should really trust Allah. And if I really trust Allah, I'll stop working. I said, "Come on, man." And then his wife, they have 3 or 4 kids in Islamic school. And he was dead serious. So if we look at the Quran, if we look at the Hadith, we see a great example of being successful and achieving things by working to have sababa, فَأَتْبَعَ sababa. And here we also learn something, that Dhul Qarnayn, when he sees a blessing, he takes advantage of it, man. That's why Allah uses fa. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. Fa. Fa, you know, I call it the DSL participle. The DSL particle. If you say wa, it means wa'atba'a, like he took his time maybe, but fa means boom. Like when Sayyidina Ibrahim, those guests came to him, Allah says, فَجَاءَ بِإِجْلٍ. He raced to serve them. Fa means to hurry. So as soon as Sayyidina Dhul Qarnayn is shown all of these means of success, أخذها بسرعة. He takes it quickly. فَاتْبَعَ السَّبَبَ, which means he understands blessings. And he understands to take blessings is actually the sign of trust in Allah, not to be lazy and use it as an excuse. Look at Sayyidina Maryam, alayha salam. The most difficult pain anyone can experience is pregnancy. Did anyone see that Dutch guy on YouTube who wanted to feel what it was like to have a baby? So he went with his wife. You see that? Or German? And they hooked him up to that machine. That dude, excuse me, uncles, that man lasted 5 seconds. Check it out. Watch it with your wife. She's pregnant. She'll love you for it. And she'll really appreciate you. And it'll buy you at least a few hours. So, we all know about those few hours. Yes. Right? So, he gets hooked up. And he's like, starts screaming, no, I can't handle it. Think about Maryam alayha salatu salam going through that pain. And Allah says, وَخُذِي إِلَيْكِ بِجِذْعِ النَّخْلَةِ. Allah tells her, grab a tree and shake it. How you gonna grab a tree and shake? I'm gonna shake a tree. I'm having a baby. Right? Even though she can't do it, she still has to try to make effort. أخذ بالأسباب. Look at Sayyidina Isa when he comes back in Syria. May Allah bless and protect and raise the people of Syria. Of course, today, 1995, July 11th, is one of the most dark days in the history of the Ummah. Srebrenica happened today. And unfortunately, most of our masajid fail to mention what happened to the Bosnian community. 8,000 boys, elders, and men slaughtered, while the Dutch UN peacekeepers had lunch with the Serbs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept their shuhada and inshallah forgive them. And there's something happening today in Richmond with the Bosnian community, but also Syria. Sayyidina Isa will come back in that area of Syria, and when he lands, he won't land on the earth. Where will he land? On the hadith of Abu Dawud and Sahih Muslim. He will land on the minaret. Why? Because once you enter this dunya, I had a sheikh from Hyderabad, India. He was a great sheikh. He said, once you enter this dunya, you have to take asbab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Isa could have just like floated. That would be like a great entrance, right? But he walks down the stairs to show us, once you're here, you have to work. You have to take effort. So Allah says, آتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا فَأَتْبَعَ السَّبَبًا. Means that he took the advantage of the knowledge that Allah gave him. Immediately, he put it to work. That's the third quality of successful people. They don't procrastinate. You know, procrastination is one from the doors of shaitan. لَأُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ says in Surah Nisa, shaitan says to our Lord, I will cause them to procrastinate. One of my teachers said, if you read Surah Al-Sajdah, you'll never procrastinate again. I said, how? He said, لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ أَجْمَعِينَ. Allah says, I'm going to fill hell with men and jinn, all of them. And the sheikh used to say to me, do you know if you're not one of them? And I said, I don't know. He said, then you can't procrastinate. You can't procrastinate. So, the third quality is to take advantage of blessings and not procrastinate. Let's mention, number one is, everything is from Allah. Number two is to acquire knowledge. Actually, there's four. Number three is to take advantage of all of the means, not to use as an excuse my religiosity. Once we were with one sheikh of Quran, Sheikh Said Jibril was our sheikh, the brother Muhammad Jibril. And one brother got in the car with us, and that brother didn't put on the seatbelt. Sheikh Said, he put on the seatbelt. Sheikh Said asked him, why you don't wear a seatbelt? He said, Wallahi ta'amadtu ala rabbi, wasnadni umuri ilayhi kulliha. The sheikh, he said, what? He said, no, you have to. He said to the sheikh, like, I trust in Allah, I don't need a seatbelt. And the sheikh, he said, you don't understand Islam properly. The constant need of this community to interpret things in the most insecure, irrational, conservative way is killing us. So the sheikh, he said, I'm Sheikh Sayyid Jibril, and I support this ad, right? I'll wear a seatbelt. The last one, and we'll stop inshallah because of time. And my understanding was a little different. So forgive me, I thought I was just supposed to go through the Tafseer. And then he said the whole chapter, and I was like, what? No. Hatta, Allah says hatta. We learned something also, the fourth quality. A fifth quality of successful people. فَأَتْبَعَ السَّبَبَ حَتَّى. Hatta is a word in Arabic which means you reached the goal. Even Al-Ajrum and Al-Ajrumiyya says, يفيد الغاية. حتى تفيد الغاية. أي حصول على الغاية. What that means in English is, a great scholar of Arabic, it's a small book we had to memorize many years ago, he said that this word hatta, it's translated as until, means you say it when you've reached your goal. So Allah says to Sayyidina Muhammad, وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينُ. Allah says to Sayyidina Muhammad, worship Allah until death comes to you. Like, use your life, the goal of your life, the end of your life is death. So use your whole life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, it's very interesting because I can say درست حتى السنة الأولى أو درست حتى السنة الأخيرة, like I studied until the highest level, the last year of my studies. So حتى implies that a person developed and reached their goals. So that's the next quality from the life of Dhul Qurnayn. يسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرى إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا فأتبع سببا حتى. So Allah says, they ask you about him, we gave him everything he has, we gave him the means to accomplish any goal he wanted, and he utilized immediately those things until. Until implies that Dhul Qarnayn was someone who pushed himself to the max. That's why it says hatta. Meaning, okay, I have these blessings, I'm good, I'll do like 50% of the deal. You know, I'm going to take the day off, I'm tired, I'm Dhul Qarnayn. مكني ربي. I'm cool. I can chill out. أعطيتني من كل شيء سببا. He gave me the means to do everything. I'm good. No. He was somebody who used all of his potential. He capitalized on his potential. He understood the power of his potential, and he understood that it was a blessing from Allah, so he took it all the way to the far west and all the way to the far east. The last few qualities, and we'll stop inshaAllah ta'ala, because we could just keep going and going, and I have to go back to DC and come back here again. So, you know how it is. The last few qualities is that we see his concern for social justice issues and his understanding of people. He understands people. لا يكادون يفقهون قوله. He goes to a group of people who know, and he says, I will punish you. He goes to a group of people who don't know, and he leaves them. He gives them time. We learn from that the da'iyah, the activist, deals with people differently. We should deal with people differently. Someone asked me once, does that mean people have different rulings? Of course it means people have different rulings in different situations. For example, what's the ruling on silk?
Not to win. Men can win.
Right, so you have a ruling for men, you have a ruling for women. What's the ruling on gold? You have a ruling for men, you have a ruling for women. But it's deeper than that. A few nights ago, I was in a mosque in Las Vegas. Yes, in the month of Ramadan, I saw all the nur of Las Vegas. They have one of the most beautiful communities I've ever, I'm talking about the Muslim community. Sheikh Majid always says, so hey, you always say something that gets you in trouble, but they always come to me. So please, I'm trying my best, okay? Don't give me any hardships. But I was there, and as I was about to pray, because the Maliki madhab, as all of you know, we do things a little differently, although I put my hands here, it's another story. But this man, this young man, he's about 14, came to me and tore my head off right before Maghrib. He's like, well, brother, I just want to let you know you're not praying right, and like your feet are wrong, and this and that. So, to further confuse him, I said, thanks, buddy. Right? Thank you, man. God, it's great to be Muslim. My name's, Bippy. Right? He had no idea who I was. I was there to speak. So imagine, after we pray, who's giving the talk? And who's on the front row? That guy. And then he comes to me and he's like, I'm like really sorry. I'm so sorry. I was like, as-sabr fi sadma taqula. I said to him, the hadith of the Prophet, that good character has to start in the beginning, bro. I said to him, can you imagine? If it's even worse. Like you could do that to Suhaib, but you couldn't do that to Bibi. Like you could do that to Suhaib, you couldn't do that to Richard. You shouldn't do it to anyone, but definitely not the new convert guy. He's like, well, I thought you were a convert and I wanted to teach you. And I was like, are you racially profiling me? Like, there's something wrong with that ethos. So we need to be very careful how we treat people. We should treat people differently according to their situations. And that brings up the question, because they'll call Imam وَعَذِبُهُمْ. Either I'm going to punish them because they have knowledge. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. You don't punish people who don't know. But people who don't know, لَا يَكَادُونَ يَفْقَهُونَ قَوْلًا تَرَكُهُ. This is called mara'at al-masalih wal-mafasid. Right? In a deeper level, he's looking at what's good for people, what's bad for people. Sometimes knowledge can hurt people. Am I right or wrong? Sometimes knowledge can hurt people. When the Prophet said to Abu Dhar, whoever says La ilaha illallah will go to Jannah. Abu Dhar said, even the one who steals, even the one who steals, even the one who commits sinner, even the one who commits sinner, even the one who murders, even the one who murders. He said, let me go tell the people. The Prophet said, no, don't tell them. Because he knows, if you tell them, it may not be good for them. That tells you also, mashallah, the maqam of Sayyidina Abi Dhar radiallahu anhu. Maqam, subhanallah. So the Prophet ﷺ treats people differently. Ayyu a'mal al-afdal ya Rasulullah. What's the best thing to do? Pray. The next person comes. What's the best thing to do? Be good to your parents. The next person comes. What's the best thing to do? Be good to your wife. Why the answers change in Ash-Shatibi and Muwafaqat? He said, because the people have different needs. So a da'iyah, maybe sometimes you've seen a great scholar like Imam Majid, maybe you ask him a question and he gave you an answer. And then you have a friend, he asked him the same question and he gave him what? And you're like, man, I don't understand, the Sheikh is so liberal, and like why this? No, you're just too insecure. The Sheikh is a nuanced scholar. He's like a doctor. That's why Abu Hanifa used to say, we're like doctors and pharmacists. So, Dhul Qarnayn deals with people differently. Even the Quran deals with people differently for doing the same mistake. Look in Surah Hujurat. Hujurat. Egyptians, man, destroy my language. Look at Surah Hujurat. Those people, Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar, they yelled in front of Rasulullah. لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي. Allah said, and look at the etiquette of Quran. Even though it was two people, it didn't say لا ترفع, لا ترفعوا. Even though everybody knew it was Abu Bakr and Umar, the Quran didn't say you two. The Quran doesn't call people out. The Quran makes it plural, as if to say all of you have the potential to do evil. Don't think you're better than those two guys. If you don't stop, you're going to lose everything you did. All the good deeds you did. This is in the end of the Medinan period. That means that Abu Bakr was the quintessential G when it came to Hasanat. So by that time, for him to be told, you're going to lose all the good you did. That's why Abu Bakr, from that point on, he used to say, and I say, no, because they were like, I got a lot of Hasanat. I don't want to lose this Hasanat. And the Prophet used to say to Umar in particular, I can't hear you, what? Because he's scared. He's sincere. But the same chapter, we see those Bedouins who have no knowledge. They're wild, they're crazy. They just became Muslim. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُنَادُونَكَ. Yunadunak means it doesn't only happen once, they do it a lot. That's why it's mudari'. They come to your house and they yell at you all the time. Ya Muhammad, indi haga, Ya Muhammad, like this. Ibn Kathir mentions actually some of the things they used to say in front of his and behind his home in the middle of the night. It's unbelievably insane. It's unbelievably insane. They yell in front of his house and his family and everybody. And Allah says to those Bedouins, Wallahu ghafur rahim. He didn't say to them, An tahbata a'malukum antum la tash'urun. Why? Because those Bedouin Arabs are not like Abu Bakr and Umar. Maqam of Abu Bakr and Umar is not like the maqam of these Bedouins. as far as their knowledge and their understanding. So outside of the fundamental issues like salah, hajj, and halal and haram, but in particular into the akhlaqiyat, we should deal with it differently. Once I was in Dar Iftah, I had this sheikh. He was so nice. He was such a nice sheikh, Sheikh Imar Affat. He died. He was killed in the first thawra. We used to read with him al-Maqudi ala al-Fut Imam. And people would come to Sheikh, and he's so nice. Ahlan wa marhab, karkadeen and stuff. Takes care of them and gives them like this nice fruit juice. It's the Egyptian Kool-Aid. But it's natural, whole food style. But then sometimes people will come and the Sheikh became harsh. So I said, Sheikh, like, what happened? He said, those people need softness. Those people need harshness. There's different types of people. So here we see Dhul Qarnayn. The last thing is do not lack sophistication. Islam requires sophistication. He's a sophisticated person. He understands these people, these people, so he deals with them differently. He understands that different people have different needs. We'll stop here, inshaAllah ta'ala. We could continue, but let's just recap what we said. We said in the beginning, first of all, the Quran means to bring things together. Jam' shay. So the person who reads the Quran, they bring together their life. They gain focus. See, mashallah, for the last hour, we're all like, that's the beauty of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we said that the story actually encourages us, as the Quran does, not to focus on things that do not lead to practice. As the Shatibi mentioned, rahimahullah ta'ala. So people ask, where was Dhul Qarnayn from? What was his blood type? How tall was he? What color was his hair? Is he on Minder? You know, all kind of questions. No, that's not what matters. What kind of dog was it? Was it a beagle? You know, that's not what's important. What's important is what's going to be told about. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. We talked also, يَسْأَلُونَكَ, how the Prophet's community, even in Mecca, because now, under this spirit of Islamophobia, under the pressure that we're having, sometimes it's not easy to give da'wah. It's not easy for people to come into our communities. We feel pressure. But even in Mecca, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ, the Jews can come to the Prophet even under tremendous pressure and ask him questions. We're nowhere near the pressure that they experienced in Mecca, so we should be able to facilitate. The other thing that we learned is that the Prophet was culturally and spiritually relevant to the Jewish community. That's something we should think about. What is the intersection culturally and religiously between our community and other communities, so that we're not only on the defense all the time, but we're able also to contribute to the people around us. So they asked him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, these questions. And then we said that there are qualities of successful people. We talked about the background of Dhul Qarnayn, where he's from, the scholars differed, what his name was, the scholar differed. And I believe this is an example now where contemporary scholarship, theological scholarship, needs to be married with anthropology. To be able to discover, because I'm sure it's not that difficult, inshaAllah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. The first quality of successful people is everything is from Allah. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ. The second thing we said is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us أَخْذُ بَالْأَسْبَابِ وَأَتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. Most of the ulama said طُرُق, right? Roads. And he took advantage of means. He didn't use his religiosity to be lazy. He wasn't an alibi. We gave the story of those two men that were lightly disciplined by Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. The next thing we said is that he did not procrastinate. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. فَفِي السُرْعَةِ. He didn't use it as an excuse. Oh, now I have all these blessings, I'm good, I can chill. And sometimes we find this in the Muslim community. People will use Islam as an alibi. Khayrul Ummah is not an alibi. Khayrul Ummah is a responsibility. I was in a gas station once, this brother was selling everything you can imagine. It was like a haram, like, you know, Con. This is haram Con. Like, it is incredible. Every single thing you can imagine we're not supposed to sell. So then he started talking to me. I said, my name is Suhaib. He's like, Suhaib, yes. And we started talking, and then he said, you know what? You know why I sell these things? And I said, I don't want to get asked you to not remember this. That's what my gas. I don't need a khutbah in the gas station. And he said, because I'm the best ummah. I can do what I want. This is the problem. Islam is not an alibi. So we find sometimes even this extremist organizations who blow up and kill people, when you have debates with some of them, they tell you like somehow being the best ummah is a license to do what I want to others. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. تلبيس الإبليس. But not ذو القرنين فَتَبَعَ سَبَبًا. He's humble. He takes advantage of every opportunity. Hatta. And the word hatta, we said it means he used the last quality, all of his ability. He put his all into it. As the ulama used to say, الْعِلْمُ لَا يُعْتِكَ بَعْدَهُ حَتَّى أَن تُؤْتِيَهُ كُلَّكَ. You know, knowledge will not give you even a little evidence until you give all of yourself to it. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us, inshaAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise our ranks and to give us, inshaAllah, the blessings of being with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us all of our sins, to accept our siyam. We ask Allah to protect and bless our Imam Majid, his family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen him, and may Allah bless you to be able to treat him, inshallah, in a way which is indicative of his great status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanahu wa rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursalin.